In 2021, again, China was drenched in heavy rainfall, and now the country is facing serious threats that it can no longer ignore, all thanks to climate change and the environmental crisis going on around the globe. We all love rain, but in China, it's getting out of control as China has faced the deadliest spells of rain, causing massive flooding across major parts of the country. Many people were trapped in their homes and offices, and you may have seen videos of people stranded in subways without the availability of fresh air trying to survive.
Now in China, more than 14,000 people have been forced to leave their homes as a result of heavy rains that have swept across eastern China since Wednesday.
It was too bad that reportedly Zhengzhou experienced nearly 3 years' worth of rainfall in just 3 days. Reportedly, the frequency of flooding in China has increased twice since 2008, and the situation is getting worse each day. You must be wondering what the Chinese government is doing. Well, the good news is that they are planning on building several sponge cities across China. But what are these sponge cities? Is this plan going to benefit China against flooding and drought? If all these questions are popping up in your mind, then make sure to watch this video till the very end. Hello everyone! If you are new to my channel, make sure to smash the subscribe button and press the bell icon so you never miss any updates. China is one of the biggest countries not only by land but by its population too. According to reports, China had 1.412 billion people in 2021, and more than 60% of this population is living in cities. 94% of the population is living in the east of the country where all the major cities are present. Like the rest of the countries, China is also facing problems related to floods and droughts, which are directly related to pollution and environmental hazards. Recently, in 2021, while addressing the United Nations, the President of China, Xi Jinping, made some bold statements that show how much China is concerned about the effect of climate change and is trying to minimize the effects. While addressing, he stated, "Humankind should launch a green revolution and should move faster to make Mother Nature a better place." We all have witnessed the exponential growth of China, from a poor geopolitical country with no power to a country that is now known in the world as a hub of modernization. But along with all the gains through modernization, China has given a huge cost. And what's that? China is a huge country with a massive number of cities providing good jobs, education, food, hygiene, and all that is necessary for living. And that's the reason people are switching from rural to urban areas at a quite faster rate. As I have mentioned, 60% of the total population lives in cities, which is approximately triple the amount of people back in the 1980s. And reportedly by 2035, 70% of people will move to urban areas for a better living. With increasing population, there comes an increased need for infrastructure for residents, work, and health facilities. And that means a lot of area previously used to absorb rainwater is now replaced with concrete that does exactly the opposite. And the second key role urbanization is playing is through pollution and climate change. Experts believe that the destructive rainfalls like those of Zhengzhou were the deadliest and were a record on its own, indicating that urbanization is causing climate change at a faster rate. Even the areas having good drainage are now facing floods. Back in 2020, in the short span of 2 months, more than 400 rivers in China have flooded. But what Chinese government is thinking about solving this problem? Well, instead of using water barriers like most countries like Vince, the Chinese are up with something new and looks like it's going to work. Unlike all other projects which are designed to stop water from entering cities, China is trying to make nature a big part of their cities. But how are they going to do this? Well, through the creation of sponge cities. In 2015, Sponge City project was launched after devastating flooding in Beijing in 2012, which left 79 people dead. It's also called the green and grey concept, in which instead of building dams and walls to stop flooding, more wetlands are created in the city. This was designed by Professor Kong Junyu and is a perfect merging and jumble of modernization and ancient Chinese agricultural insight. And China is hopeful that it will prove to be an alternative technique to modern construction. Basically, in this sponge city concept, the area is redesigned in such a way that it can cope with rainwater in several ways. First through soaking up, second through storing it, and third through releasing it when it's needed as China is facing drought. And yes, you guessed it right. It acts just like a sponge, hence named Sponge City Project. It is believed to help, as during heavy rain, sponge cities will slow down the water, and it will not remain destructive. Moreover, slowing down will help the flourishing biodiversity of the area. So instead of infrastructure made up of concrete, China is focused on green infrastructure like wetlands, rooftop plants, and rain gardens. Reportedly, India, the USA, and Russia have stepped on a road towards sponge cities, but we know that China always takes every project to another level. and the same is the case here. In 2015, when this scheme was launched, it was planned that a sponge city project would start in 16 cities across China, and later in a year, 14 more cities were chosen to be part of this scheme. The purpose of all this was to create 30 cities capable of absorbing and reusing 70% of rainwater till 2030, helping against floods and droughts that will cost $1 trillion. As the development of sponge cities is designed as a nature-based solution, the prime idea is integrating rivers, lakes, wetlands, and green space. And no doubt that requires a change in landscape and underground infrastructure at a massive scale. And it will take a lot of time to make things work. But as we are talking about China, there is huge progress across the country in recent years. Chongqing, a city with over 16 million population, is now the world's first sponge city with a modernized and advanced digital system. Over the past years, Chongqing was only secured from the rising water of Fu River through a concrete wall and was getting defenseless. But now, with the creation of a sponge city spreading over 99 hectares, the water is allowed to flow toward these wetlands with a splendid lattice of native plants, trees, and ponds. And surprisingly, it also has served the city. As in 2020, the Tongnan Dafosi Park saved the area from the massive flood experienced by the city in 100 years. Another worth mentioning is Sponge Park is situated in the east of the country, in the city of Zhenjiang, where the Yangtze River was the biggest threat. This city is not only furnished and equipped with rain gardens that help in the drainage and absorption of rainwater, but also has a modernized bioswale system over several kilometers. Bioswales are the landscape features that help absorb the stormwater from the surface and then filter out pollutants. Even though these are like rain gardens, but are designed in case there is a massive run of water coming from the streets. Another amazing feature of sponge parks is roads and cycleways, all allowing water to be absorbed. But how do these permeable roads work? Well, for designing a surface with similar properties to concrete, polyurethane binders are mixed with gravel and stones, with tiny cavities that will help soak water into the ground. So how much water do these sponge cities absorb? Believe me, now from Qianan to Hangzhou, 4,000 liters of water per square meter can be absorbed each hour. Without a second thought, it's quite insane. So, is this right to say that China has discovered a strong strategy against natural disasters? Well, it's quite early to make any bold statement about the success or failure of this project, as work is still going on. Sponge cities are proving quite beneficial for the cities, but still, the design failed in 2021 in Zhengzhou, where a sudden and record-breaking rain proved destructive. Many critics have questioned the reliability of this project after the flood, but the Chinese government also came up with a valid point that rainfall in the city was way more than ever expected, and any system would have failed in that case. Experts believe that even though the system is doing well, in the future it will be beneficial in mild to moderate floods and storms, and China must find other ways that will prove to be beneficial in times of high-impacting crises. This marks the end of my video. What do you think about this concept? Is China going to achieve a new milestone? And would you like to live in a sponge city shortly? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure to give a thumbs up and share this video with your friends and family.